Experts urge National Assembly to prioritize state policing in ongoing constitution amendment.
Establishment of state police may empower local authorities to address these challenges more effectively.
Dualization of Obajana Benin Road. Federal government terminates contracts of 4 construction companies for non-performance.
Unmanned aerial vehicle, not helicopter, crashes in Kaduna, Nigerian Air Force clarifies.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss issues in Ondo State governorship election campaigns.
Well, Ondo State, often referred to as the Sunshine State, is located in the southwestern geopolitical zone of Nigeria. Now, the state has developed a rich political history since the country's return to democratic governance in 1999.
And from the era of Chief Adebayo Adefarati, who governed the state from 1999 to 2003, to the tenure of Dr. Olusegun Agagu, who served from 2003 to 2009, and the subsequent administrations of Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, who governed from 2009 to 2017, and of course the late governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, who took office in 2017 but died last December after a protracted illness that saw his deputy Lucky Ayedatiwa sworn in to complete the second tenure as provided for by the Constitution.
Indeed, Ondo State has witnessed significant political developments, milestones and challenges over the past 2 decades. The state has experienced moments of political tension, electoral controversies and struggles for power, as well as periods of relative calm, economic growth and infrastructure development.
Well, the state's political landscape has been shaped by the interactions of key players, including political parties, civil society organizations, traditional rulers, and the electorate.
As we examine the political history of Ondo State since 1999, we will also explore the triumphs and tribulations of the state's governance, the impact of national politics on the state, and the ways in which the state's political trajectory has influenced the lives of its citizens.
Now, that's very true, Victor. And of course, as the clock ticks towards the 2024 governorship election in Ondo State, with 17 candidates vying for the #1 seat, the political terrain is heating up, and the contest promises to be a thrilling showdown with various candidates and political parties jostling for the top seat.
So, in the coming weeks, the people of Ondo State will be tasked with deciding who will lead the state towards sustainable development, economic growth, and improved livelihoods. But what are the key issues that will drive the campaigns and ultimately sway the votes? From the quest for good governance and accountability to the need for economic revitalization and job creation, from infrastructure development to healthcare and education reform, the stakes are high. So join us as we look into the critical issues that will shape the Ondo State 2024 governorship election campaigns. Our guests will provide incisive perspectives. Welcome to the program. I am Victor Azu. We are live on the network service of the NTA.
And I'm Ian Ray John, joining Victor to welcome you to the program. Victor, let me also mention that in the upcoming Ondo State election in November, out of the 17 candidates, there's no woman contesting.
Well, I guess there's no point contesting for the sake of contesting. If you're not going to win an election and you know you won't win it, why contest?
Why would you say that?
But that's why. There's no other explanation. If you are going to win an election, You don't make up the numbers.
Well, I feel bad that, sale of forms are over and, of course, primaries are done and all of that. I would have contested in the Ondo state election coming up soon. So,
Well,
because I'm sure that,
we'll get there. Maybe someday you can crisscross.
and of course, a woman will eventually get elected, for sensitive positions like that of the
Someday.
governor very soon,
Someday.
hopefully. All right, so all of these issues we'll be talking about on the program this morning. And of course, I'm sure the women will be watching just so they can pick up a few tips on how they can get better in the political space in the country. All right, so that's our beat on Good Morning Nigeria today. But of course, the usual segment talking about the newspaper review with Chukwudi Okoli-Gbaja will be coming up in a moment. But for now, let's have the news highlight with Zenret Dinkmun. Zenret, by the way, I hope you would support me if I decide to contest for governor of my state soon.
Of course, I will be right beside you, Henry. Good morning, Victor, and here's the morning news. Now, as part of continuous efforts by the FCT administration in providing infrastructure and transforming FCT to a befitting nation's capital, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, at the flag-off of the bus terminal of Sector Center A, B15 under Mabushi District, says it will provide job opportunities for FCD residents as well as Nigerians.
We have agenda, Mr. President. So you must encourage our local people who have the capacity to also deliver.
The construction of the Mabushi bus terminal is a critical step towards enhancing transportation infrastructure in the FCT and ensuring that residents can commute safely.
Now, some key players of security apparatus in Nigeria are calling on the National Assembly to prioritize establishment of state police in the ongoing 1999 constitution alteration process. This was the consensus at a discourse organized by National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies on decentralization of the Nigeria security system.
To address these challenges more effectively, ensuring quicker response and better understanding of local security dynamics.
When we're talking of policing, where you are depending on police to police your society, it means your society has failed.
Now, the Federal Ministry of Works says it has terminated contract numbers 6136, 6137 and 6138 with Mothercat Limited, Dantata and Sao Construction Limited and RCC Limited. A statement by Special Advisor on Media to the Minister of Works, Oji Uchenna Oji, indicates that the projects affected include dualization of Obajana Benin Road, sections 2, 3 and 4. The ministry says the termination of the said contracts is in view of inordinate delay of the affected companies in job performance and their failure, neglect and or refusal to fulfill their contractual obligations, resulting in the expiration of the contracts and exposing road users to untold hardship since 2012 when they were awarded. The statement says the Ministry of Works has directed engineers in charge to take necessary steps to enter upon both the site and the works and take them over from the affected companies after conducting an assessment of the work done so far. And the Federal High Court Abuja Division has dismissed the fundamental human rights suit filed by the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, against the federal government. The presiding judge, Justice James Omotosho, gave the order this Monday in Abuja. Nnamdi Kanu sued the Attorney General of the Federation and the Department of State Services for 1 billion naira in damages for alleged rights violations. In the suit, the IPOB leader, Nnamdi Kanu, claimed that the DSS and its Director General violated his rights to a fair hearing by allegedly preventing his counsel from having unhindered interactions with him while he was being detained in preparation for his defense in his criminal trial. Justice Omotosho held that Kanu failed to provide credible evidence to sustain his claims that his interactions with his counsel were interfered with. that he was denied unhindered access to his lawyers and that DSS officials eavesdropped on his conversations with his lawyers, which constituted a breach of his right to a fair hearing. Now, African petroleum regulators have committed to working together to overcome common challenges and make use of future opportunities towards achieving aspirations in the development and utilization of hydrocarbon resources.
For this forum, we are confident that APRIFEP will provide significant opportunities for networking, knowledge sharing, and establishing strategic partnerships. By bringing together regulators from across the continent, we can create a conducive environment for investment.
An unmanned aerial vehicle belonging to the Nigerian Air Force has crashed during routine operations in Kaduna, contrary to reports in the media that it was a helicopter. The Nigerian Air Force later confirmed this in a statement, citing the location to be Rumji village and not Tami, as reported in other media. The Nigerian Air Force also used the opportunity to call on the media not to be quick to rush to break news before getting the facts straight. NTA investigated by contacting sources on ground in the location, including efforts to contact relevant Kaduna State government authorities and the local government chairman of Igabi local government area where the incident occurred. Those are the news highlights of the moment. We'll rejoin Yenri and Victor after this break.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Milo, energy to go further.
From Nestle.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, we stand back in demand, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Diversity is unique, we have more than the solution. We are Nigeria, strength in unity, we know they carry love. We are Nigeria.
Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Sir, you think you're in club? Remove your glass. You cannot wear your sunglasses on here. Mention something a Nigerian would ask for when buying suya. Rice. It's hard. I know all these beautiful women, guys. It's hard. This job is not allowing me to be free of my step to just tease and back to be in the house. Are you in a current relationship now?
No.
No. Yamisi is just a friend.
Yes.
You're single.
Yes.
He's single. Maybe they can mingle. Survey says.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
For staying with us so far on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next is newspaper review. Oh, I was looking through the papers there, lost for a moment. Okay, we begin here, well, before with the Daily Sun, but not before I introduce Chukwudi Okoli-Ubaja, who, like me, is also looking through the papers already.
Yes, but unlike you, it had concentration. It happens, Victor. You're only human.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm all right.
Yeah, Ray.
Chukwudi, good morning to you.
You know, I eventually became the only one that pronounces your name properly.
Don't be too sure.
Good morning.
So let's begin with the Sun. Let me take it from here. And it leads with the major headline, Ondo Port, Rivers. Customs impounds 844 rifles worth 4.17 billion naira duty. And it has a rider 112,500 rounds of ammunition also intercepted. Details of that story you'll find on page 25 of the Sun. And then there is this picture story, which has an element of it which has been trending anyway, but that's by the way. Speaker of the House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas, fourth left FCT minister, and others, you know, during the official inauguration of the construction of Mabushi bus terminal in Abuja yesterday. And then just beside the nameplate, ECOWAS sets up committee to settle Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger disputes. Laments terrorism upsurge, violent extremism, organized crime in sub-region. That story is on page 28. And then at the bottom of the front page of the Sun, minimum wage, 26 states may be unable to pay budget, data reveal. That story is on page 23. And then pandemonium as explosion rocks Zungeru hydroelectric dam in Niger. That is on page 4. And finally, Borno bomb attack. Death toll now 32. VP visits Gwoza. Victims. You find that on page 6. Yeah, Ray.
All right, let's take a look at the New Telegraph quickly now. The lead story here has the kicker, terrorism. Declared total uncompromising war on Boko Haram criminal elements. ACF tells federal government. The riders says attack on soft targets in Borno bears telltale terror strategies of extremist group. State police will mitigate nation security challenges, according to the Senate leader. We're not considering a new military base in West Africa. U.S. admits pulling out of Niger made Sahel region less safe. All right, all of that on pages 2 and 28 of the New Telegraph. Away from that, above that lead story, we have other stories here. Tinubu approves Benue Taraba Link Bridge. Federal government says no explosion at Zungeru power plant. Of course, that's contradicting the reports on the Sun, talking about an explosion at the Zungeru power plant. Of course, we just hope we get the true picture of what transpired at the power plant in Zungeru. Away from that, INEC will make 2023 general election report public soon, according to Yakubu. All right. Of course, we have here Trump has some immunity from prosecution. Supreme Court rules. Of course, so much happening in the U.S. Build up to the election. And of course, we have other stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. Just beside the picture story, we have NAF, drone not helicopter, crashed in Kaduna. So many refutals. This happened, this didn't happen, and all of that. Away from that, we have 80% of Nigerians can't afford housing mortgage, according to the minister. 80% of Nigerians cannot afford housing mortgage, according to the minister. And finally, this morning on the front page of the New Telegraph, we have this caption here. Wike Kingibe, face off. You won't come back in 2027, ex-Rivers governor. Rider, minister almost acting as FCT governor, says FCT senator. Of course, this would interest you, between a man and a woman. So you want to pick up the details of that fight and where it will end.
Is it about the man and the woman? It's not about
that's
that.
the way I choose to look at it.
That.
That's the way I choose to look at it.
It's all politics.
That's the way I choose to look at it. It's a political fight between a man and a woman. Looking at the blueprint now, we have here the lead story. INEC proposes 142 recommendations for improved electoral process. Please, could you allow me read the headline? I really don't like the look.
Did I say anything?
I need to be done with this. INEC proposes 142 recommendations for improved electoral process. The write-up to intensify engagement with National Assembly on electoral reform says Anambra Guba holds 2025, Ekiti Oshun 2026. City Council polls 2. Of course, not forgetting Ondo and Edo that's taking place this year. Away from that, we have ECOWAS standing force will confront existential threat, and that's according to Ture. Rider, Akpabio task regions parliament on collaboration. All right, just quickly taking one or two other stories on the front page of the blueprint now. Above the masthead, we have NAFDAC seals 100 shops in Enugu over fake alcoholic beverages. Page 15 has that. Interesting read. You want to see the brands that are affected so you can be sure of what you're taking. And then we have in the green strip at the bottom of the front page of the blueprint, lawmakers to amend TED Fund Act for easy access to fund. All right, that's the much I can take. Page 20 has that. Chukudi.
Yeah, the ghost of a smile you saw on my face was actually to say that you, not clear this time around, are stamping their foot on implied female activism. But let's not go to the funny aspect of it. What is really the issue between Wike and Kingibe? He's acting as if he's FCT governor. Well, the job he has to do are almost akin to those of the governor. It's just that in the constitutional arrangement we have, he is under the presidency. It's not the way the governor has reasonable autonomy to govern the state. Maybe
and
that's the point that I just make.
And critically immunity.
Yeah. Critically immunity.
No,
critically immunity.
But it's about a comment for me and for a lot of people, looking at what's happening. The comments of you won't come back in 2027.
Yeah. Did you read the story? Don't be carried away by the culture.
I have.
No, the thing is, we have always had a tradition of letting politicians be themselves on this program. I pray that we are going to maintain the tradition. Politicians would always say whatever they want to say.
Tomorrow,
that's not for journalistic analysis.
They could get along tomorrow.
They understand one another. That's the way they are. It's their clan.
They could
and
get
that's
along
why
tomorrow
you
and
and I
you'll be here.
hardly ever fit in. Because
we just hope the understanding that male politicians have is the same understanding male and female politicians have.
It has gone back to what I initially suspected. It's okay. Declare total uncompromising war on Boko Haram criminal elements. That's Arewa Consultative Forum talking to the federal government. I want to observe that right from the purchase of those Tucano aircraft under Muhammadu Buhari, I think federal government actually started showing some concern in terms of the riot, the rampage terrorists had engaged in this country. So it is only being said so that the Tinubu administration would continue, as it has already started, to deal them a very hard blow, because they have become an ill wind that blows nobody any good at all. Insurgency, as long as it is there, the first casualty is the human beings that, suffer, die, are maimed. The second one is that agriculture suffers. Big deal. You see, when people say all the money is coming from Niger Delta, this country is sustained by the Niger Delta, insurgency has shown you that the food coming from the north is not something to be taken for granted. We are all seeing the effects of it now. So let us all see something, say something. It's not just a federal government thing. We keep on saying we can help the federal government do its work there, There's this funny one. Ministers, top officials, abandoned offices, work from home. Their electricity was disconnected, And I say, look, I don't know. I've not read the story deeply, so let me be a little superficial about it. But I want to say that paying electricity bill is something that government should show a very good example about. It's very important that they go first so that we, the citizens, would emulate them. You understand? But then you don't know the circumstance. Was it not part of the budgetary provisions? Was the money provided and it wasn't used to pay the electricity bill? Well, we don't know the circumstance yet, but these are pertinent questions that need to be looked into. You understand? So that's what I think about this termination of contracts by Minister of Works. It's been doing the rounds since yesterday, but I want to say that it gives me opportunity to say, hello, Dave Umahi, keep it up. You just asserted that the man really is an engineer, and Victor, do you know what that tells me? There are some portfolios in this country, ministerial portfolios, that actually need relevant knowledge. And to hear that even people in FERMA, it's become a meeting of engineers. Many of them are also professional engineers. I saw Dave Umahi talk to some expatriates about 4 months ago, and I was happy that a Nigerian minister could say, no, you can't do this. The man sounds so competent. We need to wish him well as he clamps down on people he feels are lackadaisical on the field of play. Yeah.
Indeed. And then One Port, Rivers, Customs impounds 844 rifles, whatever it's worth.
Around
But
4 billion.
This is
44
something.
what?
844
What are they? What war?
This calls for
You didn't complete
attention.
that.
What war are they
12,500
preparing
ammunition.
No, 112,500 ammunitions actually.
Oh.
So this calls for attention. Rivers is being set up for something very difficult.
And that is not going to be good for our politics. It won't. Well, not just politics. The military people, the soldiers, the police, they have an unspoken rule. If you lose your rifle or pistol to robbers, then come back alive. You know what they tell you? They'll tell you it were better you died defending that pistol. Because between the time it was taken and maybe 5 years later, you don't know how many people would have been killed by that pistol. So guns coming into Nigeria unofficially by non-state actors, that is a cause for concern. What are they preparing for? You keep asking. But let's commend our customs, please. Very important that we commend that they were able to detect this and actually, you know.
Of course. We hope that for other subsequent, acts like this, the customs will also rise up to expectation. There's this story about rising volume of non-bank transactions, and the headline is saying that it is worrying the CBN. Of course, having a rising volume of non-bank transactions, there's so many factors responsible for that. Some Nigerians have not recovered from the Emefiele money issue, where you have to go to the bank and then you cannot get your cash.
Yes.
The alerts, debit alerts from banks, whatever transaction you do, you get debited. Whether you're receiving money, you're sending money, SMS debits, all kinds of debits. Of course, all of this making a lot of Nigerians become unbanked.
Yes.
And pushing them out of the banking sector.
The message I get from that is that transactions are happening that are not captured in our monetary and financial, supervision and all that.
Exactly.
It is not very good. It's not very good in the sense that you cannot actually put a concrete economic analysis on the ground when you cannot warehouse properly the monetary transactions going on in the country. You won't be accurate in whatever you do. And again, it doesn't help government project on, development issues and all that. Whatever the reasons are, we need to go get into the banks. We need to. When you mentioned it, I thought you were going to talk about the online money banks now, the micro...
POS?
Yeah.
The fintechs.
The fintechs, yes. Do you know that these regular banks who were so almost arrogant about giving you loans are losing out to them now? You can sit in your home now and take 500,000 from these people. Regular banks will be telling you have to do this, you have to do that. They better watch it.
All right.
No, I mean,
I guess that's a good place. That's a good place to leave the
Nigerians,
conversation.
actually.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
Chukwudi Okolubaja, thank you for coming.
Yes.
We'll see you again tomorrow.
By His grace.
All right. Thank you for staying with us. Discussion proper on the Ondo State elections will begin after this break.
A good farmer is a craftsman of the highest order. It is said, great farmer, great nation. No farmer, no nation. Yes, let's set the ball rolling to build that great Nigeria where good food is in abundance, affordable and easily accessible. The Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, is aligning with the vision and aspiration of the administration of President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, and is organizing the Every Home a Garden competition. The competition is under the scope of agriculture of the Renewed Hope Initiative. For the competition, women are encouraged to immediately plant a garden at home, such that the harvest can provide adequate food on their table and enough to give their neighbor. This competition is open to only women. She must be a first-time farmer. The garden must be in her home, and it is open to women in every state of the Federation and the FCT. Interested participants should do a 30-second video and a picture of the garden, which indicates its location, to the office of the First Ladies of their various states. The winner of this competition will be announced in December 2024, and the winner of the competition goes home with 20 million naira. Women, join the train. Be part of the food revolution in Nigeria. What are you waiting for? Let's get to work. This message is by the Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups. over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and God has kept together as one indivisible entity.
Conversation on major fallouts of the National Economic Council meeting of the 27th June 2024. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on cushioning the effects of the economy on the populace. That is our focus on NTA Tuesday Live for this week by those who should know. Tuesday Live, every week at 10:30 p.m. Incisive and educative as ever. Join us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
And to kickstart our conversation, which is on issues around Ondo State governorship election campaigns, let's see this background report put together by our correspondent Oyeyemi Ajayi.
3, 2, 1. Year 2024 is one to witness an off-cycle election in two states, Ondo and Edo states. Preparations are obviously in top gear, especially in Ondo State, which election scheduled for Saturday, 16th November 2024. With party primaries concluded between 6th to 27th April 2024, parties have made their choices of their best foot, which is the party's flag bearer. With the commencement of party campaigns on Wednesday, 19th June 2024 till midnight, 14th November 2024, candidates go round to solicit support and prospective votes. A total of 17 candidates who are actually eyeing the number one seat of the states are all male with no female. Nejo Adeyemi of the African Democratic Congress ADC happens to be the only person living with disabilities in the race. This gender inequality of candidacy has actually been condemned by some analysts who believe that women should be given more chance in the political space, talking about allowing more women vie for political seats freely. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) on its part says it remains committed to ideals of credible and inclusive polls, and this reflects the commencement of continuous voter registration exercise, which ended on June 9 in 210 centers across the 18 local government areas of the state. Now, basic issues on ground in the state which people are concerned with, especially at the rural areas, is the accessibility to proper health care services aside infrastructural development, which many still clamor for towards growth and development in the state. Poverty eradication is another major challenge which needs urgent attention in a state which has a 27% poverty rate. With this, what are the other issues in Ondo State governorship election campaigns, and how prepared are the candidates in addressing some of these challenges when they come to solicit for votes to become the next governor? These are some questions guests will be answering shortly.
All right, we have joining us for the conversation now our guests are already seated, and I'm glad that we have a woman amongst them. Of course, as highlighted by my colleague, and like I already mentioned earlier, the Ondo governorship election is not fielding a woman. And yeah, so let's quickly get on to the guest that we have in the studio. I'll introduce the woman first. Yes, I think my producer will let me do that. Please join me as we welcome Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. Thank you for joining us for the conversation.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, so I have 3 men in the studio. I'm not sure that they can harm me and Faith. So let me introduce right here in the studio, Ezinwa Nwago, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform and Convener, Say No Campaign Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Victor.
All right, and we've also been joined by Austin Aigbe, CSO specialist in electoral process and elections. Thank you for joining us.
It's an honor. Thank you.
And finally, from Ibadan, Oyo State, we are joined by Professor Emmanuel Remi Ayede, Professor of Political Institutions, Governance and Public Policy, Department of Political Science at the University of Ibadan. We're glad you could join us, Prof.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
So do we begin with you, perhaps, since we have you still bright and clear this morning, let's find out what your reading is from where you stand of the governorship election campaigns ongoing in Ondo State.
Well, I think the elections are going on as expected, and the campaigns are proceeding. And from the primaries, it is evident that the election may likely not be different from the typical off-season election. And we hope that the election will be peaceful and credible.
Conversation. So we'll just quickly come back here to the studio, and I'd like Ezinwa Wagu to, let us have a feel of what is going on in Ondo. I'm sure you have had your ears on the ground. Of course, you have people on ground seeing things happen as the campaigns, go on in the build-up to the governorship election. What have you been able to put together?
Well, thank you. I think we're going through the rituals, the rituals of campaign and all the pulls and trails that go with it in terms of promises, in terms of engagement from the politicians who always dictate the narrative. But I've been thinking that we should reorder things in the sense that I'm more interested in seeing town halls now organized by civic and professional groups inviting the politicians, because at the end of the day tracking becomes difficult with all the music, all the razzmatazz, if you like, that goes with the crowd, in fact, the introduction of, musicians, comedians into campaigns takes off the ability of citizens to track what are the issues, what real issues that, you can hold on to. And that's why at the end of the day, if you say, what did you promise in terms of the things that needs to change, the things that needs to happen, especially if you understand that Ondo had some kind of a period of inertia, government inertia, by the activities that, that dovetailed into the campaigns, where the governor of the state had challenges, health challenges, and his eventual demise and all of that. So I'm thinking that the Nigerian Medical Association, Nigerian Union of Journalists, NUT, and other such civic groups and civil society should by now be thinking in terms of how do we present the state of education in the state, the state of primary school, the state of secondary school, because the NUT will be in a position to do that, and then invite these candidates and say, in the next 2 years, what will be possible to achieve, and that will help. The Nigerian Medical knows the state of health, and all of those kind of
So are you
things.
saying that beyond these bodies that you have mentioned that should be questioning the candidates now, the political parties do not have policies they intend, or if you like, programs they intend to bring on board if they get elected?
We've gone through, when I started, I talked about rituals, and I've been in this to know that if, for instance, we change things, we'll be able to hold people accountable. What will a politician say? What is he going to say? What are those things? The promises are there all the time. Okay? You have the riverine communities, mostly riverine communities. What is the state of development in Ondo State? Where are they in terms of, human development index currently? Those challenges needs to bring new thinking. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the politicians will not do what they do, but if you're asking for a reordering, that's what I'm thinking in my head. I don't want to discuss what this politician is saying, what the other one is saying. In reality, I don't know anybody that will say I'm going to steal your money. I don't know anybody that will say I will not fund education. I don't know anybody that will say I will not fund health. Okay? They do say that they will do such things. And in fact, many times, those who prepare those documents, the one you call manifesto, are professional, young people who bring this in glossy pictures and the rest of them and present them to people. So if you check in content-wise, you are not going to see, sometimes they are even from Google. So we need to change engagement. That's the point for me. If we have to go into this election the way we should, these civic groups must become activist groups that will begin to put the leg of the politicians in the fire, and then knowing that when they become, eventually, you can then have something to track.
Well, but does that not mean that it's just, I think it tells a story of where we are in our democratic journey, because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day what you say to win an election before the election. Once you have power, well, you are going to do 4 years. It doesn't matter what you do. Whether you do what you say is another matter entirely. I don't know if Faith agrees with me on this. If it is the case that, saying I don't put a lot of premium to what is said before the election. At what point are we likely to get to where it matters if you say and you don't do?
I guess I agree with Ezenwa, because the missing link we have is that engagement with citizens groups. So you look at the manifesto of political parties. Don't be surprised that you're looking at Party A, Party B, Party C. The only difference you may see will just be the party name and the party logo, and perhaps the acronyms of the political parties. There's no difference. So, but because you don't have that critical engagement with citizens groups that will help you to set targets, so that at the end of the day, when you're saying in 1 month, 100 days in office, because that's where we have all of the jamborees that you see, 100 days in office, tricycles are distributed, but you have not asked the question about what was it that you promised that you would do in 100 days. We came from, there was this time we had one president who came and gave a list of 100 days, one activity per day for 100 days that he would achieve in office, and by 100 days they have not even ticked off the first thing. And then you were asking what happened, and he said, oh, okay, it's different. What it shows is that we now have this kind of ritual that people feel that when you have a very good campaign, you do the jamboree, you bring the musicians, it's more or less entertainment. So I was discussing with a few people from Ondo State, and I was asking them, what are your concerns in this election, especially looking at this period? And a lot of them seem to agree that not a lot has changed. The same narrative, the same kind of campaigns, haughty words to each other, unnecessarily heating up the polity. And so they're really interested, they're really concerned about the security going forward. A lot of them are saying if things continue with the way it's going with the campaigns, they may not even come out to vote. And then the people who really are interested, like for instance, some observers who have been in Ondo are talking about the issue of vote buying, that really it's not, there's nothing to address that issue. So when you have the political class who understands that what I need is a structure, what I need is a party name, it's not really about the performance of the party in the past, or looking at the assessment of that and looking at what their programs are, specific programs, not just saying, oh, I'm going to improve the health landscape, I'm going to improve the educational landscape. For instance, if you take Ondo, there are a lot of communities in Ondo, in the riverine areas, that have particularly affected by climate change. Some of those communities, if care is not taken, they will be wiped out because they have this ocean surge. A community like Ayotoro, for instance, you know, there's been this constant that, and none of the candidates are talking about what they will do when they get into office to address the danger that that particular community faces. That used to be one of the prominent communities in the riverine areas in Ondo State, and nobody is talking about the climate effect on that community. So you expect that the community people, the professionals in the state, will engage the candidates to come up with a proper blueprint on what you will do, perhaps in your first 100 days or other things. There's not, and even in the case of the women we're talking about.
Of course, we'll get to the part of the women, but let's talk about this call, you know, asking for CSOs, organizations, and you know, all these bodies to, you know, question those who are seeking, you know, for the governorship position. Do you think the electorate themselves, Ondo people themselves, want more? You know, is there a reawakening on the part of the electorate? Because I want to know from your interaction with them. Because in the past, we get to see people who just say, oh, well, it's either because this person is from my ethnic group, yes, or this is the party my father supports. I mean, is there a renewed drive by the people in those states to say we want a government that would deliver, that would do this and do that for us? Are they ready for that change?
When you talk to them individually, they seem to be ready. They want that change. Everybody within their closet, they want that change. But they don't want to come out to engage, because it is when you engage, you put your concerns on the table. You put the politicians, whoever is seeking for your vote, you know, on the hot seats to understand that these people know what they want. And if I get into office, I'm not able to do that, they will be able to hold me accountable. So they do that in their closet. And when you ask, they give you a list of things. I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy about that. But can you come out as a group and engage so that you can have a blueprint and say, this is a plan that I hope that you will deliver for me to give you my vote? And that is one thing again that we need to really get citizens to be involved in this, because the whole process, if you look at the whole electoral value chain, it's actually about the citizens. It's not about those who get elected, those who get to enjoy the benefits of being elected and being in office. But the people sit down on their responsibilities. It is not enough to just say, I have the voter's card. It is not enough to say, I'm a citizen of this state. You should come up, because this is the most important election. And unfortunately, I've seen that citizens engage, for instance, national elections much more than their subnational elections. The governorship elections, local government elections are elections that citizens from that state should engage, give manifestos, let the manifestos of candidates be derived from what you need as a citizen, because you have engaged. But when you sit back and discuss in your closet, there's no way your candidate will understand what is happening. And that's why you see that at the end of the day, it's always about the people. Most of the candidates from Ondo State are really from a particular zone. So the people in the zone are saying, oh, it is our turn. It is our turn. Please let us forget what is happening. These people have done their own. They are not looking at the assessment from these people have done. Where did they get to? What is the foundation they have laid? What can we build on that foundation to help us get to where we are going? So we really need to call our citizens to be doing that. Because if you have, for instance, you have good policies, even the manifestos of the politicians, citizens can take that manifesto and say, which part of this manifesto sits in with what I need as a citizen of this country, and begin to hold that government accountable. Let him make public promises, like, well, they will definitely make those public promises, but ensure that you follow up and don't just go back to sleep because my person has been elected. I tell you, there's some people who have been elected from certain zones, and there's no development even in that zone or even in that state. But the person will come back another 4 years. I remember one time, I think it was in Edo State, we had a governor then that didn't do very well. And then the people were saying, no, this governor didn't do well. And the father came out and said, you know, when you send a child to school and he fails, allow him to repeat. And people went ahead and voted for that person. So we need to move away from that kind of mentality and know that the power is in our hands. And every time I talk, I keep talking about this thing that I learned when I was in Edo State, when the leader will come to say, Mana loya, urioya. I'm sure Austin understands exactly what I mean.
If you are not loyal,
you will suffer. So you have these politicians during election, they come to you and say, oh, we are loyal, we are this. They navigate all the unnavigable places that you have because they want your vote. But as soon as election comes, so those places are hard to reach areas. We cannot do that. But during the campaigns, they came to you and you couldn't hold them down to something that you want them to do. At the end of the day, they give you cola, like where I come from, they do ishagwari for you, they give you cola, and it ends there. At the end of the day, because you have taken that cola, because you have taken that money, you are not able to hold them accountable. That thing that you want them to do for you, they will not do for you. The next 4 years, you start having that conversation in your closet. It is time to come to the town halls. It is time we come out as groups, like the medical groups, teachers, even drivers, because roads are not motorable. Community people in Ayotoro, for instance, can decide to bring the candidates to their community and say, this is what is happening to our community. Give us your commitment on what you want to do, because in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, we don't even know if you'll be able to come to our community to campaign. This is what we want you to do. And on the first day of inauguration, you begin to hold the person accountable that this is what you promised to do for us. Because if you don't do that, for instance, you will not expect other people who are living in Lagos, Abuja, to come to do it for you. Like they say, he or she who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. So if you know where it pinches you, you need to hold those accountable that can help you to address
Talking
that.
about shoes and where it pinches, I like Igwe to please respond, to this, because of course, Faith Nwadushi has talked about a lot of happenings and sayings in Edo State. Of course, you are in tune with that. Talking about where the shoe pinches, at the moment, Nigerians are suffering from the economic hardship at the moment. So it is pinching economically, if you like. A lot of people are struggling. You are reading, looking at the campaigns, looking at the political parties and the candidates they are fielding, and looking at the electorate, the body language of the electorate. Do you really think that all this talk, would decide what happens on election day, or you think the money bag would have the day?
Okay, thank you very much. Conversation in this room is very strong. Let me set a platform. Only those who have shoes will know where it pitches. Maybe not very many citizens. Those have the capacity to hold public officers to account. So not with all of the lamentations, you just lament. I mean, if you go on the street, on social media, you're going to see huge lamentation of Nigerians talking about economic holocaust that is here right now with us. Returning to Ondo State, everyone used the word the rituals. The days of issue campaigns are long gone. The days where you organize political parties with the intention to focus on some critical aspect of development architecture is long gone. You go to campaigns, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, there was a campaign in Ondo, in fact in Akure, where one of the parties welcomed defectors in huge number, crowd everywhere. And what happened? It is jamboree. You see dancing, and the other party came up and said, no, those were not their members, these were hired crowds, just to play low on the huge crowd that our party displayed. So it is no longer about whether we're going to fix infrastructure, whether we're going to fix stomach infrastructure, or whether we're going to deal with issues around poverty, hunger, starvation, health concerns, or teachers and all of that. It is who is bringing what to the table. In where I come from, who they bring pepper. At the end of the day, each of those crowds, if they were mobilized financially, each of them would have gotten like 1,000 naira or 2,000. I recall in election, the last election in Ondo State, where I had to, engage the voter. I said, but why are you taking 2,000 naira to vote? And I don't want to say whether it's a male or female. The voter said, this one when I get so, now the one I will get, make I collect and make I hold on. I'm like, but if you collect and I check what you collect, if you look at it for the next 4 years, you say, hey, leave that matter. May I collect the one I see now? So you see, it's a consciousness that people know. We have gotten to the point that people already know. Everyone was talking about having these non-state actors or civil society organizations mobilize and invite these people. It had happened before. They won't come. They will tell you these people organizing these things belong to the other party. The other party is just to undermine this organizing by organization. The real role of political party is to engage. Parties are supposed to be the vehicle that organizes teachers, say, come and ask us questions. Let's engage. Then you organize medical doctors, the NMA and co. Let's engage. this is what we are going to do. Hold us accountable for X, Y, Z. I mean, in other clients, that's what you see. But in the Nigerian state, where you even see in an election, somebody will tell you, debate. I'm not going to debate. It doesn't count because it doesn't give me vote. And then after all, I will win the election without debate. Elsewhere, if you don't appear in that debate and engage on issues, you are never going to have your way. But in our client, citizens, again, not too much, we have to blame citizens because they are the ones that are supposed to hire, or we are the ones that are supposed to hire. And they say that we hire and fire. You know, in this Nigerian state, to fire is an uphill task, except you run contrary. In the word of Madam Faith, we're talking about if you are not lawyer, you're a lawyer. So if you are not loyal to a critical mass, then that is when firing happens. That is a system of society, a civil society organization, women, youth, men can gather and say, we are recalling a senator, we are recalling a House of Representative member, we are recalling a House of Assembly member. Not even in this country, Nigeria. It once wanted to happen in Jigawa State some years ago. It never happened. Somehow, also in Kogi State, with Dino, it never happened. Because of other layers that they are fighting me because I am doing XYZ. They politicize the whole narrative and they use what they call the divide and rule system. What is divide and rule? You put our eyes together to fight. You come and say, you don't know, say, because our side now rich now. Now, like Faith said, in Ondo State, Ondo South, the Aziz is the one with is the one that is likely because they have the APC and the PDP. Candidate from that senatorial district. What will happen eventually is that if there's a fight, that's going to tell you, are you not aware that the North have done their own? It is now our turn. That's why they are fighting. And the guys in the South not paying attention to issues. What has happened in areas that Faith mentioned? Where is the roads? You are going on that route. It takes you like the whole day to assess your own community. And nobody's talking about it. You are talking because our turn. Once it's our turn, the deal is sealed. That's not the trajectory. I think based on this platform, as people hear us, communities, civil society organizations, you have the responsibility. We once did that during an EU project many years ago, around 2006, where we are going to communities to develop what we call an action plan, where communities sit together in a PLA strategy to identify projects for the next 5 years. And when councillors also come to their community, you bring them to the round table to say, well, you know what, if you want our vote, which one are you going to do? Gradually, if communities can have projects identified, lay out, in fact, in one community where I work directly, we had to go put a wall in the community and print out that plan and stick it on the wall. So when politicians are coming, they see it. Oh, town hall, number 1. They will go and mark it. So the next one, maybe it's hospital or cottage hospital or whatever, say, which one are you going to do in this 4? If you're not doing anyone, please pass. Until someone comes that, okay, I am going to do this, and sign an accord with the community. Then the community members mobilize to support. So when you have achieved the elections, they will not tell you, hello, Mr. Governor, congratulations. When are we doing this project? Until we get to the point where communities can organize themselves, it may be very difficult for individual organizing.
All right. Thank you very much. Even though sometimes it's so gloomy that even when you do this kind of ticking, okay, this is what we want you to do, this is what we want you to do, and you fail to do it, the next 4 years, somebody from that community will say, don't worry, he will do it in this second term. Maybe they appoint someone, he will tell you he will do it, and that's why talking is a different thing. What you do before is a different thing from what you do. Even if you gather all the professional bodies individually to say this is what we want to do, a politician who wouldn't want to do it is most unlikely not going to do it. And that politician may still, I mean, some of us have alluded to that, we still will another 4 years and nothing, and life goes on. But it's good to keep talking, right? So let me get Professor Ayede again. I understand we have you back. So, Prof, what do you think are the issues that should shape the Ondo State governorship elections? What are the issues that matter at this time in the life of Ondo State?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of issues that bedevils Ondo State. Top on the list, of course, is the issue of poverty. and has featured again and again in the speeches of both the late governor and the current candidate for the APC. We also have youth unemployment as a major issue. Of course, that's also connected to the issue of poverty. Unemployment is very high in Ondo State, and poverty is also very high when you compare it with the other states and in the southwest geopolitical zone. Then, of course, attached to all of this is the question of education, quality education, beyond the whole act about infrastructure in terms of roads, as earlier been stated in riverine areas of Ondo State. But you can't do all of this without having a reliable and consistent source of revenue, and revenue generation is also big. Ondo State is reputed for farming, and agriculture would have been the place to go in terms of boosting employment, but that is self-problematic. If you look at the policy of the previous governor, there were always tension around land, especially the introduction of Chinese companies to acquire lands in Ondo State. So these are the major issues that are topical in Ondo State, and we have not seen any of the candidates actually bringing out an outline of what he or she is likely to do in the event of being governor. Interestingly, also in Ondo State, there's no big issue about an oncoming gubernatorial debate, which would have been the focus of the discussion of issues. So we have a gubernatorial election that is coming up, in which the most visible aspect of it is angling for position and having people or groups or communities claiming to have or pledging support to one candidate on the other without necessarily providing a detailed basis around issues for that purpose. So the elections are coming, the campaigns are on, but it's more or less a story rather than a critical end with the issues and how each candidate is going to address them or even raise resources to ensure that their policies and programs are implemented. If you look at even the current governor's seeds program, it's a rehash of what we used to hear, issues of economic empowerment, issues of promoting youth employment, employing people through the civil service or the teaching service commission, and issues around building skills centers for young people. You really don't see any innovative or creative approach within the discussion or the debate. One would have expected that debates around issues would have been become very strong within the state, but that is yet to happen.
So much, Professor Ayade, for that. It means that even the CSOs and the organizations you're talking about are also not thinking like you're thinking, Ezinwa Nwagu. Otherwise, like Professor said, by now, of course, issues would have been discussed. But I want to find out what you think about what Austin Agbe said, that individual engagement may not really do the magic. Community engagement is the way out. You know, I'm trying to ask this, or rather I'm asking this based on what you said earlier about CSOs and the rest. Do you really think that the traditional institutions, traditional leaders have a big role to play in how these campaigns go and how governance eventually take place at the end of the day?
Well, in listening to Austin, I was looking at the point of departure. I didn't see any because I didn't talk about individuals. I talk about groups, civic groups, and the power that they have. Do you understand? Just imagine the Nigerian Labour Congress in Ondo State organizing a town hall and inviting candidates, and you tell me they won't come. That they are what? NUT, organizing Nigerian Medical Association, Nigerian Association of Nurses and Midwives, and even if you don't want to have that, you combine together and do a programmatic engagement. I'm not talking about the one they organize. You are the one who understands the challenges. For Professor Ede was talking about, you can't find strong initiatives that can solve these problems. The guys who have the capacity to do so are the professionals in those areas. They can engage, and that has been the gap. See, in every election cycle, what we have done is what I started with. We are very ritualistic. Just elections has come, let's go ahead, do the dancing, they invite us, sometimes we give awards. This is the time to begin for those professional groups to give awards. It becomes a bazaar for all of us. And until we come to that point where we are saying, what can we do differently? What is that thing that we can do differently? Because we've seen this thing. You see rehash. Go and check documents of governorship elections in any state and see whether what you are going to see in Ondo 2024 will be any different. It's going to be the same thing. So that differentness has to come from civic groups and organizations within that state becoming active in ensuring that things change in their communities. If we don't do that, we're going to run this ritual. As for the traditional institutions that we are talking about and religious groups, they can invest moral authority on this election. And how do they do that? The first thing they do is these governors are going to be going to KBACs and all ballets with all kinds of things. You can come to that point where and there are a lot of respected traditional rulers in Ondo State who can say, look, enough of this thing. Mr. Governor, welcome. Thank you for coming. When you win, what will you do? What are you going to do? It's not about prayers. Prayers are important, but they don't solve anything in terms of shifting the needle in the kind of crisis that we are facing in most of the states. So you need to begin to say both the traditional institutions, all the active groups within Ondo State need to reawaken to change things. Because my perception of programs like this is agenda setting. We don't problematize and say, this will be the challenge. This will be all the challenges that we are going to have to point people to where they should go. Now, whether we are going to get results is another thing. But not trying at all is worst. So we need to push these groups and say, can you test this model? Programmatic engagements, projects, like the one my brother was talking about, EU project. The communities are wired, they are waiting for you. When you come, they are already waiting for you, your project. You staple those. Let us have homegrown, real hunger for change. And those issues that we are talking about, why civic groups are important is that they will not pander to those sentiments that fly about this is where it comes from. Like I said, if you are ill and you go to the hospital, you don't ask where your doctor is from. The first question is not, are you from Igbokoda? Or are you from Owo? That's not going to be your question. You want to be treated by a doctor. You want to get well. So if a professional person who understands this, knows the state of the hospitals are in decrepit condition, in spite of the investment that has been done in mother-child initiatives that we saw in that state, the conditions are worse today. So what do we need to do? We need to wake up these platforms. Traditional rulers are important. But what do you see now? The churches, what do you see now? This is the time they start launching. They are building that they have not built for the last 3 years. This is the time that they will invite the candidates to come and help them. Those things are the things that diminish us as a people and make us look very unserious in the eye of these politicians and their candidates. So we need to reorder those things. The traditional rulers need to say, we don't need to come with these gifts now. Because like he said, every vote buying or voter inducement is not the one we have in the Electoral Act. Inducement come in many forms. Inducement come in the bag of rice, in the money that is brought to the palaces. Those are inducements. And if you can reject them, the politicians will begin to take you serious and take note. And this does not have any, because at the end of the day, it's about collective good. And that's where the challenge is. We benefit individually, you know, from all of these visits. The printers are getting money right now. They are printing posters. The musicians are being paid. The food sellers are making money. But these are all, you know, things that are within an interregnum.
Don't you think that even within these professional bodies, looking out for individual benefits, you know, is what they seek as priority over collective good? Maybe that is why the professional bodies themselves would rather go ahead to give awards, like you already mentioned, instead of engage with these politicians to see what they can deliver to the people.
You are saying
So don't you think that it's the electorate that, you know, needs a sense of, I mean, there needs to be a reawakening. There needs to be something about the citizens themselves, you know, just to be able to hold politicians accountable.
In every community, you have a teacher. In these civic groups are also electorate. They are the electorate. Their activities have spiraling effects on majority of the citizens. And let me tell you, don't be deceived about crowd in those rallies. They mean nothing. What is the voting strength of Ondo State? Okay? So what is the capacity of every arena, the public arena that you have? Those are hired. There are people who have 5 T-shirts of different political parties in their homes. They attend all the rallies. They don't mean anything. The electorates themselves are ingrained in most of these civic groups that I talk about. And it is the right orientation that is important. And I think that is what we're doing. That set public good above personal benefit. That is why we are where we are. We are the place where we have not set public good and put it in the front burner. I will give you an example. If a community wants to perhaps place a borehole in a community, it can take that community 3 years to raise the money. But there are individuals in that community who sink boreholes, you know, in their own houses without any fundraising. But if you want to build a church, you can build a church for 20 years in a community. But there are individuals who build their own houses in 2 years, in 1 year. It is our attitude to public good. Once it has to do with for the benefit of everybody, we decline. But that is the bane of our underdevelopment. That is the bane of why we are not able to hold the politics. And that is the advantage that they take. Because they know our attitude. Once you're elected, you come for your... If we say, let us go and meet them, hold this meeting now, the excuses that you provided will come up. You know, they will not come. But if you need a letter from the chairman for your child to go to police college, you will know how to go and meet him to give you that letter. If you are doing naming ceremony and you need to meet the senator, you will find every way to meet the senator, to get money to do naming ceremony. But once it comes to how do we change the state of things in terms of health and education, all the regime of excuses that you see will begin to emerge. So that reorientation, and election time is the best time to mobilize this people-centric, you know, engagement with the political class and their parties and their politicians. If we don't do that now, like he said, when they are elected, they will ask you, but I gave you, I heard of a story of a governor who won the election and the community mobilized themselves to come and facilitate with him. And he brought out the result of the election and said, if people are coming here, you did not vote for me. This is your vote. And this is the one I used to win. So the challenge is that the people you are dealing with are more organized in terms of how the picture that they want, but the people themselves are not organizing themselves. So when I come for these programs, I no longer do rituals. I no longer am interested in saying what the conditions in Ondo State have not changed in the last 40 years. In real terms, fundamentally, the backward communities, the backwater communities in those states have remained the way they are. She's talking about climate change issues, the whole of that place. And that is also becomes what the politicians use. So you are going to Igbokoda, you enter the boat, and they tell you that do you want to go forward or you want us to sink here. Remember that there were times smart card readers were put inside inside the river in those states. So the politicians even use the state of underdevelopment to further their own interest. What would then be the thinking of the people? They think people must wake up, whether they're electorates or civic groups. This is the time to not allow campaigns to be done the way it's always been done. That's my point. Change the order and say, look, this go and take t-shirts, get food, get all of that is okay. But can you come for us to have a conversation? Let's have a conversation.
But beyond the conversation, how would you expect the people of Ondo State to hold whoever emerges as the governor, to account of whatever has been said before this election? Because Victor said something, that sometimes they talk and they give all the beautiful promises, like you said, they've been doing that. But when they get into power, they don't actually go back to what has been said.
Because we are not pushing the door.
How will the Ondo people now, if they push for this issue-based campaign you're talking about, how would they be able to hold whoever emerges accountable?
There's another engagement that comes. This is a first engagement. The other one is knocking the door. When you knock the door once, they don't open, you don't stop knocking. Democracy is not a walk in the park. There's a sense in which we think this is microwave. Put it in, you get. No, it's a continuous pushing. And that we didn't remove the military by a knock, by one knock. The removing the military took, the blood, the toil, the moil of citizens, suspensions, expulsions from university, killings, and was what took the military away. The current despots that occupy, our political spaces will not go by the kind of sweetheart engagement that we are doing with them. Of, they've won election, you let them be. No. When they come home, whether they are representing you in the National Assembly or your governor, they come to events. What do you do when they come to events? Oh, His Excellency, is that all? There are people who should be able to say, Your Excellency, you came to our town hall, you said you will do this, nothing will happen. The quality of our citizenship is diminishing because we don't even know who we are. And we don't know the power that we have. And we are hoisting regimes of excuses every day as to why we can't do what we should do. And that's what people take advantage of. The quality of the citizen, no matter what you do in Edo State, because you are from Edo State, the governor of that state cannot banish you from Edo State. The worst case scenario is to put you in prison. He cannot say you are no longer a citizen of Edo State. That's the power of your... And the governor has one PVC. You have one PVC. The equalization of it is what is important. So when that consciousness dawns on you, you know that the power is with the citizen and not with those who govern.
All right. Let's talk some politics. Let me delve into an area that will interest Yenre and Faith. We have 17 candidates, right?
Exactly.
And there is not a single woman. Now, personally, I feel that if you know you are not going to win an election, then why, just occupy the space? Why want to just disturb? But why do you think no woman is contesting?
Thank you very much. The whole idea is, if you look at the history of elections in Nigeria, especially when it comes to Ondo State, we have never really had any woman on the ballot. And, people say earlier when we were having that conversation, Ezenwa was saying that it is not given. Now, look at the major political parties that we have. None of them have ever fielded a woman. So it is not about the candidate who is there per se, but because of the political party.
But
like
the woman has to win primaries to be fielded.
Yes, the fact of the matter is, what is the nature of primaries that we have? Do we have primaries where political party card holders go out to elect the person that should represent them? Or we have a situation whereby the party leadership has decided on a candidate and says this is a candidate, and you do party primaries because the law says you should do whole party primaries, and you come out with a candidate. Even before the party primaries are held, the political parties already know who their candidate is, who should emerge. There was a situation in time where you had somebody who emerged from a political party primaries. The sitting governor at that time took the person who emerged from the political party primaries and took his candidate on the right and said, this is going to be our candidate. And the person was fielded. So it is not about the political party having their primaries, because we know that there's zero party internal democracy in Nigeria. What they have on their manifesto is different from what they actually do. So, and then when in a situation where you have a woman that is qualified, the party will not feel the woman. They come out to tell you that, oh, women should have free 0 naira. They don't pay money for nomination forms. But when you look at the process that brings the candidate, for instance, without paying 0 naira, without paying any money for your nomination form, you have to go to every ward, look at the political party structure. You need to pay money at that level, pay money at the ward level, pay money at local government level, come to senatorial district level, depending on
everybody
your
does that.
And everybody
does that,
so
right?
Where do you expect that candidate to bring the money, the kind of money that you need to run that? Moreover, once a political party decides on a particular candidate, what they do is that they put resources together. So why not have a woman that is capable to be that and give the same structural support you are giving to that male candidate for that woman, then the woman will win the election. So it's really not about the individual that you put there. We have seen situations where people were not card-carrying members of a political party. You join that political party in 6 months, in 5 months, and you emerge as a candidate of that political party.
Are there cultural issues to this? Do you think there are cultural issues, there are religious issues that make this so that the men do not want to feel the woman? Is there a reason?
So we find ourselves in this African traditional culture that places the male over the female. You know, that have had situations where people talk about the head, the man being the head and the neck, and for you to be seen, you need to have the neck that turns the head. And so most times you find traditional men not wanting to be led by a woman. So you go into the situation and they tell you at community level, they tell you, no, we cannot even afford to have a female, lead us. How can I say that the woman is my leader? How can I go there? But we have seen all over the world that there are women who are excelling. And these same men who have said that they cannot see a woman as a political leader or as a governor, go into offices where women are leading to ask for the same kind of favors and do the things that they say they will never do because a woman is there. So that's why we really need to. And then if you look at the voting population, women are really more. If you look at the end of the day, when you come out to do an analysis of those who actually go out to vote, women. So this whole conversation about having communities, having civic groups, holding people accountable, we need to also have the constituency of women holding different political parties accountable to say we need at this point to have this candidate as a female, so that we can have that support.
Faith, yes. Like Nzewa said, you need to knock and knock hard enough. Do you think, I agree, these issues are there, the cultural issue, political difficulty and all of that. But do you think women themselves are knocking hard enough? Are they pushing enough? Because you're saying in Ondo State, for example, no woman has been fielded. Yes. Look at the number of years. And in Edo State, for example, we have about 16, I think, and just one woman. So do you think, even as we look forward to another general election in the next 3 years, do you think that women are knocking hard enough and pushing for what they truly want? Yes, or you think they're just sitting down and waiting, let the men give it to us?
No, it's not giving. And women have also realized that it's not giving. And that's why women are working hard to ensure that they emerge. Now, when you talk about issue of knocking, whether they are knocking hard enough, women are really knocking. It's about who is at the other end of the door to open the door for that door to be opened. So you have a situation whereby, before the last election, there were these 5 bills, the constitutional amendment that didn't scale through. Now you need to look at what are the numbers, because when you talk about issues about democracy, you're also looking at numbers. Women, we have the numbers, but the capacity to be able to take over the seat depends on who is sitting at the decision table. What is the number of women who are sitting as political leaders in our different political parties compared to the population of women who are members there? For instance, the major opportunity that you have, or major role that is given to women that is very prominent in political parties, is even the woman leader. There was even a situation whereby a political party in a part of the north of the country had fielded a man as the woman leader of a political party in this country. We saw the posters. The person was campaigning for that election to be held, that he would be fielded as the woman leader. And there's also a situation where you have that mentality where people feel that the woman leader should only be responsible for the welfare of the community. It wasn't until recently that you now have the reorientation of people to understand that the way you call the male my leader, you also should be able to call the woman my leader. She's a woman leader. She's not an appendage to the executive. She has her equal rights as an executive of that community. So when it comes to issues of knocking, women are knocking. Women are beginning to support themselves. In the past, they say women are the ones who kill themselves, who do that. The narrative has to change. Now you see the problem we have is that you have a woman who is a leader in a political party. She's trying to make her beat. She's trying to make knock, as we say. You have all of the male leaders of the political party either going to meet her father, her brother, or her husband to say, this woman she's becoming too stubborn. She's doing this. You need to calm her down so that this can happen. So you have a lot of that happening. But when it comes to the issue of knocking, we are really knocking, and soon we will get to that.
Let me put you on hold for now because we need to pay some bills. But while you speak about who knocks the door and who opens the door, the other door, I realize that we've had women in our history, Kudamina of Zaria, Olufumlayo and some Kuti. These women didn't wait for somebody to open the door. They forced the door open. But we'll talk more about this only after this break. Please stay with us.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables, and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipments will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town. Mr. and Mrs. Giant David!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family forever, the story of our lives.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And we've been discussing issues around the Ondo State governorship election that is forthcoming. The campaigns are ongoing. And just before we went on break, we were talking about the place of women in the polity, why there is not a single woman contesting at the moment. I wonder if Professor Ayede has something to say about this. Is there a reason you could point to as to why there is not a woman contesting in Ondo State? In fact, Faith Wadishi said there's never been one.
Yeah, but it is important to note that there were actually two women who contested the APC. They didn't come very close at all in terms of the votes they garnered. I think that there are quite a number of reasons why it is challenging for women to gain the ticket of the major parties. And in fact, some women contestants shared their experiences in participating in some of these elections. So many reasons have been adduced. The first, of course, is that women are disadvantaged in terms of resources historically, in terms of where they stand in the economic ladder. And as such, politics is financially involving. And you also notice that to see it is either they are wealthy on their own or their husbands have resources to support them. Otherwise, finance is a major setback for women. Then secondly, the character of politics itself creates challenges for women. National meetings, violence in political rallies, many challenges that intimidate women from being strong contenders. Then, of course, this is also portrayed by cultural values, where women who are engaged in political activities are often perceived as irresponsible. They think that serious-minded women who are culturally grounded will not be associating with politicians. It's only in recent times that the profile of women in political parties is gradually rising. So it's going to take a while for women to achieve the position of governorship. If you look at even cases where they've been deputy governors, they have always had issues with their governors. So there's also this feeling among the Nigerian politicians that women don't really have to take the front row. And if you look at what the previous president said before the public, you know that in certain parts of the country, men still believe that women should be confined to the other room or the kitchen. So there are cultural, there are financial, there are social, and also historical factors that has made it difficult for women to ascend to these high offices.
All right, Professor Ayede, thank you so much. But, talking about women who have made it as deputy governors, if we look at history, they have not really been problems to their bosses who are governors compared to male deputy governors.
Maybe it's in Anambra. I mean, I mentioned name.
Well, just, compared to the struggles we see, the struggles we've seen between governors and deputy governors is mostly between male and male, so it's mostly between them. I think we've seen female deputy governors who have actually served well and, finished very well. But, let's, look away from women contesting elections and look at other factors that shape elections and, the way everything turns out at the end of the day. We want to look at security. It's a critical aspect. A lot of people may not be interested in the campaigns now because they have made up their minds that they will not vote, maybe because of security concerns. Some people, again, may not be interested in what is happening now in campaigns because of the posture of the electoral body. Looking at what happened in 2023 general election, some people would just say, oh, well, there's no point to get myself involved. So let's speak around that. Security, has been critical for successful elections, and then the electoral body, talking about INEC now. How would you want to put that, you know, looking at what's happening in those states at the moment?
Yeah, thank you. Just to quickly make an inference so I don't create a gap. In one community, the question you raised when people talk, in one community where there was a mapping, and just to quickly, the EU project was not necessarily an EU project, it was engaging communities to develop an architecture. It was owned, there was an ownership piece. Faith was part of that project at that time. In one community where the candidates signed an accord with them and they refused to do it, by the next election, the people locked the door and stoned the candidate. The community suffered. But the essence I'm saying is that a community, like a community of practice, when the community says this is the route to go, and everybody in the community, don't forget, everybody in the community is multi-layer. You have doctors, you have nurses, you have all layer. Beyond, in addition to having the suggestion by Eze1. Back to your conversation, the question about security and otherwise. There's a huge trust deficit in the electoral system. Citizens' apathy is beginning to get higher, that our vote may not count. So what's the essence of actually voting? That reassurance is what matters. And that is why in this election, INEC has come out to say your vote will count. That will be something to also hold on to. In addition to holding political party and candidate to account for what they say or what they did not say, when INEC says that your vote will count and that this is what will happen, these are the processes, when you vote, this is what will happen, citizens must also hold INEC to account. To say you said this and we did this, this did not happen. That line, because when we have built trust, then you can actually increase voting population to show up. Beyond that, when you look at most of the things that matter to citizens are not within the concurrent list. Security concern actually is an exclusive list item. Even though in Ondo State, very uniquely in Ondo State, who pursued, who led their Mutekuns, the Southwest, let's say, North State actor now, even though they bear arms legitimately, it as a result, thanks to the former governor who led that, the late governor, who led that architecture, mobilizing the other governors in the Southwest. Today, Amotekun is seen as the, in quote, the only, I'm very conscious of the choice of my words so that the police don't say that I'm undermining them. The only system that the communities tend to believe when there's a concern far in the interland. There was a kidnapping case in Ondo State one day during the election of 4 years ago, when they said, call the police. They said, no, call Amotekun. So Amotekuns become like the closest to them. And that's part of what we talk about federalism. This issue around, somebody in this conversation said, people pay attention to national election more than state election. Because everybody now think that what we will eat will come from the national government. Anything that will happen, you need to just create a road from your local government to another local government or from your street to another. You are waiting for Mr. President far away in Abuja to come to Ondo State. Whereas the governor of your state, the chair of your local government, is the one with the responsibility. That gap has created an enormous concern. Back to the conversation about issues. Poverty. Prof has talked about that. Poverty in every election will always come up because when you look at the community, a civil service state that we always say, both in the two states in off-cycle election are basically civil service state. The majority of those who work for government. And today we're still talking about minimum wage, whether minimum wage is living wage or whether minimum wage is national wage. And those individuals who should benefit from the creative cake or the national cake are seeing it as if we win, you remember the First Republic where if you don't belong to the national government, you are going to suffer and all of those jargons. In today's Ondo, people are conscious of who will solve their greatest needs. And what is their greatest need? Unemployment, particularly young people who literally don't have the kind of, whether it's, you call it white collar job or green collar job, whatever job. Today we have blue collar job because we have blue economy. There are a number of jobs, whether you call it entrepreneurship, development. You don't need a white collar job. You don't need to work in a civil service office. They expect a governor that will chart the path of prosperity, that this is the ideal thing. For example, in the first 100 days, whether you use 100 days, I don't believe in 100 days, just do your job. That in the next 1 year, we will lift 1,000 people from poverty. We will give them this job, and this job they will earn this salary. After 2 years, this is over. You know that kind of marking. So we mark and follow. You know why we don't follow? You ask everyone that question about why citizens don't follow. Majority of times, when politicians speaks to the crowd, we will give you water. Everybody will say, hey, to who? Not every community in the state need water. There are some who just need road. It's different from one community to another. There are communities who need to be able to address climate change concern. There are those who are battling with cholera. It's a major concern today. There are those whose health systems are total. There are communities without any portable cottage hospital. None. There are communities where there are no schools, dilapidated buildings. Each of those communities, when you talk about water, they have streams, they can easily boil their water and then come on and they're okay. But they need the school for their kids. That is their priority. There is no one campaign promise that fits all. Campaign promises are usually focused and targeted at a specific people, location, or community. So we can draw the line. That if you promise road to Owo, let's assume Owo has good roads. Maybe Owo doesn't have potable water. And you promise water to Owo. In the next 2 years, you can come out to say, I made a promise to Owo people that I will provide water. Today, we are commissioning this water. In any case, I'm not asking to spend 10 million to pull water and they use 200 million to commission. That's another route for conduit pipe and conduit corruption. I think part of what we focus in this election is the media narrative, agenda setting. Everyone was very on point when he used the word setting agenda. What agenda do we need to set for Ondo State? One, tell us how you will lift at least 1 million or 200,000 in the next 2 years. Focus on lifting. Focus on youth unemployment. Focus on agriculture. The state is basically an agro-economy. How do you increase the land mass, agro land that people can farm? Young people are willing to farm, but they don't want to use cutlasses. They don't want to use hoes. How do you mechanize that process and make it fancy in a way that today we have what we call agro-business? How do you put people, young people who use social media to sell their yams, sell their fish? I mean, this is a tech world, and there is tech farm. Create a new world, and not to go with the rule of thumb that has consistently bedeviled our Nigerian state.
All right. Thank you. Let me get back to Ezewa Wago. I don't know. He's mentioned the new world, technology. To what extent do you think that technology can become an issue in this election? Be it for campaign, be it in governance, in the actual governance. To what extent?
Well, first, I think that we're also not reckoning with the fact that Ondo State is an oil-producing state. Mm-hmm. And that we have to also know in terms of audits, because that's also important. We have to audit what that has been
done for them,
for the Ondo people and the people that the state sends to represent them in the NDDC and such other platforms. Because what comes from that has capacity also. If they don't go into individual pockets, they have capacity to turn around the state. Now, technology, that's if the technology can be used in the service of evil, it can also be for good. Indeed. So let's talk about technology for good, because the young people are already deploying technology in so many ways. You know how they are deploying that, and central is most of those areas. So we need to get involved in a way that helps us to advance, not the Silicon Valley kind of thing that people promise, but we can have small clusters of, where young people's capacity are built in cyber security, data analysis, and such stuff. That's on the one side. But there is something I want to say because we are running short of time. The issue of trust is something that can be politicized. Data is important in putting out there, because when people say, she said, when you look at what happened in 2023, that's big. What happened in 2023? So many things happened in 2023. 7 governors lost their deposit to go to Senate. 7 sitting governors lost their deposit to go to Senate. What does that tell you? It means the election is competitive, especially when you put it against the background of the fact that these governors conduct local government election and take 100% of the votes cast in the local governments where they've conducted. And just to go to Senate in their communities in 2023, 7 of them lost. In the same 2023, the chairman of the dominant political party, in fact, the governing party, lost his state to another party. If you know where we are coming from, you know that is inconceivable. So that should inspire confidence that in a competitive election, that it is possible for people to win without necessarily going through. If you also go to technology that you talked about, the beavers is an undisputed game changer. You can criminalize it the way you want. 98% of the places where it was deployed, according to the data that is available, the beavers was able to ensure the reduction in voter identity theft.
Okay.
And that's key, because the numbers, the humongous numbers that you have in Kano, that you have in Lagos, that you have in Rivers, that you have in Akwa Ibom, the politicians were not able to throw in those numbers in 2023. So citizens need to come to that point where they understand that things are changing. Because if we don't use that narrative, and we say, oh, what happened in 2023? But let us also talk about what happened in Edo, where the beavers was deployed before this new one, because in Edo it worked effectively, and we had an opposition governor win election in that state. Okay, we had it in Osun. Opposition governor is currently in Osun State. So it is not completely true that, it's been the way it is. So I need to put that on the table so that we are able to appreciate the fact that things are changing. It was going to be not possible for opposition. They will write results and you go to court and challenge it.
All right,
but today things are changing, and citizens need to be conscious and aware of those changes.
Thank you so much, Ezenwa Nwagu. Let's quickly get a fifth from Wadishi because of time. So in 60 seconds, he left off with things are changing. What are the things you'd like to see changed, before the election, during the election, and after the election in Ondo State?
So most importantly for me, I would like to see more engagement with young persons. In the 2023 election, we deployed about 50 observers for the election. As I speak to you, over 40% of the young people we deployed for that election have left Nigeria from Ondo State. I'm talking about Ondo State statistics, and that's quite worrisome. So if we're going into this election, the governorship candidates should begin to look at programming for young persons, engaging more seriously young persons, and then young persons not just ending with that engagement, but going forward to hold them accountable, because somebody can engage you and promise you, but if you don't demand for accountability, it doesn't happen. So we need to have more young people engaged, more programs for young persons to ensure that we keep that young population in Ondo State to use the technology that we have mentioned.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Aide, your final words. I'd like you to speak around people living with disability, just in 60 seconds. What would you like to see done differently this time around, as regards campaigns and, of course, the election?
Yeah, I think the major issue that I want to address is the issue of apathy. And given the economic situation in which majority of Nigerians find themselves, there's disengagement from government, because democracy does not seem to be yielding economic dividends. Persons with disability, of course, they will be doubly affected. And INEC has usually made special provisions for them on election day. We hope that this provision will still continue, and they will find that encouraging enough to come and vote on election day.
Fine place to leave the conversation. Thank you very much, Professor Emmanuel Remy Aide, Professor of Political Institutions, Governance and Public Policy, Department of Political Science, University of Ibadan. Thank you so much for being our guest again today. We do sincerely appreciate you. Thank you, Prof. All right, of course, we appreciate Ezenwa Nwago, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform and Convener, Say No Campaign Nigeria. Thank you so much for being our guest. We appreciate your insight as always. And of course, Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. Thank you for coming on the program and hoping, like you said, we get to see more women on the ballot and of course eventually win, just to make Victor feel bad about his earlier comments. And of course, thank you so much, Austin Agbe, CSO Specialist in Electoral Process and Elections. Thank you. And of course, looking forward to having you as we have a conversation as regards Edo election. That's also on the front burner and it's coming up in September. All right. So that's the conversation this morning. We hope Ondo people have gotten the message, and we hope those in the critical sectors also got the message. I'm Ian Ray John. Enjoy your day.
All right, I'm Victor as well. I'm also looking forward to the day when a woman becomes governor of a state in Nigeria. We'll see you again tomorrow.